Welcome to Houston Sports Talk with your host, Robert Land.
Thanks for checking into the best Houston sports podcast, part of the National Bleav Network, and joining me to talk Texans and about that Texans schedule release, plus give us an Astros quarter season report card, is my old co-host and the current co-host of Area 45 weeknights on Sports Radio 610. Great to see you, Shaun. It's Shaun Bijani, and man, are you ready for some football?
Football? Always ready for some football. I'm just getting used to having baseball back already. Just looked up at the calendar the other day, and it's like, man, we're almost in the middle of May. We are in the middle of May now. It's awesome. 2 weeks removed from it being one of the greatest times of the year, where you got football, basketball, and baseball going on. So it's a good time.
Yeah, I can't wait till this Texan season. I don't know if I've been more excited about a Texan season than this one. I'm going to get your thoughts on the schedule and what's your take on it. I like the earlier bye week and what looks like a less backloaded schedule.
I was talking about it last night on the show, and I said my biggest takeaway, number one, was the bye week. Last year it came in week 14. The previous 2 years, you had them right in the smack dab in the middle of the schedule, like around week 8 or 9, which you're going to quibble with a couple of weeks. I don't know. You know how particular coaches and players can be sometimes. They'd probably like to have it right smack dab in the middle, but just looking at the schedule, the way that it shakes out with where the opponents are, I like the fact that the bye week is early. Looking at a team like the Ravens, you play them the week before the bye, and then coming out of the bye, the first thing that popped to me was you've got a very home heavy schedule. Beyond that, you're going to play 3 straight home games at one point between weeks 8 and 10. That's just a couple of weeks removed from the bye. So you're playing 7 home games versus only 5 road after the bye. That's huge. I think another important thing to consider in that, with the bye being week 6, typically your players are healthier earlier in the season. So you get those road games out of the way that are before the bye, and then I think you're breaking with the Seattle Seahawks after the bye. That's a good thing too. You enjoy the home heavy schedule beyond that. Hopefully you can get healthy, or if you're staying healthy, it all bodes well. And there's no gauntlet that exists on this year's schedule, at least going into it, that did. And we all talked about it between weeks 15, 16, and 17 last year with the Dolphins, Ravens, and Chiefs. There ain't nothing like that on this schedule this time.
Yeah, to me, the earlier bye is beneficial because, the bye week always gives you a chance to reset, and you've got some young guys that are going to be playing wide receiver this year that are rookies. And I think that's going to help them, a new offensive coordinator, a new system. That bye week gives you like a chance to reset. Okay, where are we at this point?
Yeah, I think it's great observation. You are young at some key positions. You're different at some key positions. Looking at you, offensive line. I like the fact, too, we were discussing last night with this offensive line situation, and maybe we'll get a little bit more into it, but schedule related, you're facing some pretty darn good opposing D-lines. And I think that's going to be something that I'm going to want to look a little bit deeper into is, with this new offensive line, you don't know really where anybody's going to play. I mean, I don't think you can be sold on anything yet at this particular time, but some of those darn good defenses out there, teams like Tampa Bay, who you're going to see week 2. The Seattle Seahawks, they had a pretty good defense week 7. The Broncos, week 9. You know what the Bills are. What you're going to get from the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. Never mind those guys. Some really good defensive lines. They were all in the top 5, 6, 7 in sacks, in pressures, in points per allowed last season. That's a huge test, sprinkled throughout the course of the season. So the sustainability of whatever Cole Popovich, Nick Haley think of this line, that's going to be an interesting follow.
Yeah, great point, because, you're always trying to gain that offensive line chemistry. The extra bye week grants that. I feel like they could have had 14 byes during last year's season. They would have never gained the chemistry. So it didn't really matter. But one of the things that I looked at was strength of schedule. And it says the Texans are ranked 18th in strength of schedule based off last year's results. But are you surprised that despite what seems like not that strong of a schedule, yet they have an over-under in Vegas of 9.5, despite bringing back nearly the same team that's won 10 games the last 2 seasons?
I think that's probably a combination of maybe two things off the top of my head. It's based off of the success or lack thereof of your opponents from last season. So maybe some teams that were poor last year are expected to be a little bit better because of what they've done in draft and free agency at maybe some key positions, right? And we can look at some of those later. But then I would say also there is a huge amount of uncertainty, not just with the local fans and the media, but certainly it's been a national story now. And this is what people have focused in on with the Texans. It's the offensive line. I mean, you traded away the best thing you had on it in Laramie Tunsil at the most key position, not center, your left tackle, who's responsible for protecting your quarterback's blind side. And I don't think that falls on deaf ears of anybody. I mean, that's a huge deal for me personally, and I think for a lot of people around here locally. It's not as big as a blow as people think it is. Like, sure, if you'd like to be solid in one area, it would be left tackle, but that's almost like having the best of the worst of something. He's still very much been a part of the worst offensive line in all of football 2 years running. So what, you're going to continue to pay this guy gobs of money and get great pass protection, but what about run blocking? What about just being great as a whole line? So I think that people are really focusing in on, when you come up with things like strength of schedule and the over-under of 9.5 wins, it's a very pedestrian number. It's a very easy number to pick from. I'm sure you've done this. Go and look at the over-under win totals for some of the other teams, like the Kansas City Chiefs and the Baltimore Ravens. They've got the most popular number probably a decade running now, 11.5. Over or under 11.5. What do you think? Well, the Ravens have won 10 or more games for I feel like 7 or 8 years, and the Kansas City Chiefs have been no different. The Buffalo Bills are right up there too with a ridiculous over-under win total, and the Texans, because it's the AFC South, everybody beats up on everybody, and there's never really a full-on belief and faith in this team. 9.5 is a safe number, but if you're asking me right now, I will take the over.
Absolutely would take the over if I was a betting person. And one of the things that you and I have not discussed since the draft has happened is anything about the Texans draft. Do you have a favorite Texans draft pick?
Jaden Higgins is my favorite because of the size, the athleticism, the comps, how big that guy is to look like he's got the footwork and the route running capabilities of a guy like Tank Dell. That's special. That is really special, coupled with, what you already have in Nico Collins, with the quarterback that you have and the run game that the Texans could have with Joe Mixon and Woody Marks, and maybe Dameon Pierce, blossoms yet again in the backfield for the Texans behind at the very least, hopefully a competent offensive line. Just Higgins with the size and the athleticism, the skill set, and working with Nico, having a damned if you do, damned if you don't option duo at the receiver position, that's huge. And that's exactly what I feel like we all envision a Nick Caley, CJ Stroud offense to look like. Stroud's going to have a little bit more responsibility, a little bit more flexibility to control things, manipulate things at the line. And what better, of a number 2 option to have than another big guy that you can throw the football to that can get to open space and make plays like Jaden Higgins can.
What about a least favorite Texans draft pick? Was there any pick that you just didn't understand or was disappointing to you?
Didn't understand the quarterback. Mertz, to be honest with you. A lot of people that I've listened to and talked with, just kind of couch it. Well, look at what the New England Patriots did, all those years with Tom Brady. They took a quarterback, every once in a while and, develop them. And why not take a quarterback? You're always, planning for contingencies, even if it's a plan D, E, or an F, right? Why not? That's just not something I feel like was at the forefront of people's minds. And you got to that point later in the draft. And to me, it felt like a wasted pick, so to speak, because my initial thought was, okay, if you had your doubts or maybe were considering again for a second straight offseason, really moving Davis Mills, now this quarterback room exists without Case Keenum, an excellent mentor, an excellent ear, a person to bounce things off of. If you're CJ Stroud or any young offensive player on the team, You don't have that resource anymore. So, yeah, Davis Mills, he's been in the league for a little bit now and has learned some things. But if you needed a quarterback, you can always go out and get one. Like, how many quarterbacks that are in this league as 2s and 3s and that have bounced around do have that experience that a Graham Mertz does not? I mean, here's another rookie. So, whatever. I just felt like it might have been better served going out and creating more depth on the interior defensive line, creating more depth in the secondary, which, look, those are very deep positions already. I would even say, hey, go get another young wide receiver and develop them. What better place to learn than here in Houston right now with this quarterback behind Nico Collins, behind other proven wide receivers? Christian Kirk, Tate Dell's going to be in the mix, and you're bringing in a competitive duo between, Jalen and Jaden, Higgins and Noel, respectively. That'd be a great situation for anybody to step into. I felt like you could have gone anywhere besides quarterback. Need a quarterback, you can always go get one.
Yeah, I guess the theory with what Caserio was doing was if you fall in love with Mertz after seeing him, then maybe you can get something for Davis Mills, a draft pick down the road that's better than a 6-round pick. And he loves his late round picks because those are the ones that he likes to trade and do stuff with. But I'm trying to get in Caserio's head. That's the best I can do.
Good luck.
I've got a really difficult question for you. What is your ideal starting offensive line? You're talking about it earlier. Who you got from left tackle to right tackle right now?
To be honest with you, I'm a little on the fence in regards to what I think I would do and what I think the Texans will do. Right now, I'd go Cam Robinson at left tackle. They're paying him the money with incentive-laden contract that he got for 1 year to basically be that guy. He's penciled in at that position right now where he can earn up to $14 million on this 1-year contract. I'd put Cam Robinson in at left tackle. I think it's his job to lose in training camp. Left guard is where it starts to get very wonky. But, there are a lot of people out there that believe Titus Howard is a far better left guard than he is a right tackle. I don't know that I'm there yet. He's been serviceable at left guard, but it's very hard for me personally to grade and come to a conclusion that that's the case for an individual that is only 1/5 of what across the board was terrible. Now, what's to blame? Is it the scheme? Is it the offensive line coach? Is it the lack of physicality and aggressiveness by the other members in that particular area of the game? I don't know. I don't think Ariante Ursary is an option at left guard. At least the Texans have not even breathed a word that is a part of their, thinking about bumping him inside, a position that he's never played. But shocking, that's usually the case with Texans offensive linemen. They don't play a particular position, and they're going to see if you can play it or not. But I just wouldn't go that route. So gun to my head right now today, I'm going Cam Robinson left tackle. I'm going Titus Howard left guard. I'm going Jarrett Patterson at center. Juice Scruggs as your right guard and Blake Fisher as your right tackle. With those veterans pushing those guys for jobs. If the veterans who have very much from Laken Tomlinson to Ed Ingram to Trent Brown, and I've already inserted Cam Robinson as your starting left tackle, if those guys who have already been starting caliber players in the league before win those jobs outright, then so be it. But I think that's the conversation. This whole thing is a TBD. These guys do have versatility. They've played all over the place. Laken's never played just one position. Ed's never played just one position. Jarrett Patterson, Juice Scruggs, Blake Fisher, all of these guys, even the veterans that I didn't mention, they played everywhere. But if I'm picking, that's what I want to see, because I feel like the best version of Juice Scruggs we saw for almost 2 games last year came at right guard. I thought the best version of Blake Fisher came at right tackle. And I think the guy that people kick under the carpet who's played more center than anybody else on the team, here or gone now, is Jarrett Patterson. He's done a pretty darn good job. I like that guy. And I'm not saying he's earned anything, but he certainly earned, if anything, the benefit of the doubt to keep that job at center and have Juice or whoever beat him out for it.
Yeah, he's just so reliable too. I mean, he's somebody that you can just put out there and he'll give you a level of play that's pretty even keeled. So yeah,
consistent, right? Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree with you there. And did you find anything of interest from the rookie minicamp, speaking about the draft picks?
I, like you and a lot of other, people, scoured the social medias, for all the video I could find. And I'm going to tell you this right now. I asked John McClain about this on my show a couple of nights ago. I said, hey, what was your big takeaway, big impression, something that surprised you, intrigued you that you saw from rookie minicamp? And he, of course, was like, T-shirt and shorts and these guys just running around, blah, 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 whatever. I'm like, yeah, but dude, how big of a guy is Ariante Ursary? 6'6", 330 pounds. Like, that's got to be an impressive thing to see. Just watch that guy move around. We've seen the tape of him, how athletic he can be. And I just told John, he said Higgins was like, wow, you're looking at some of those young receivers moving around. It's kind of breathtaking and impressive. But my first takeaway from any one of these rookies, and I like Higgins, he's my favorite, but Ariante Ursary is a close number 2 for me, because I think back to when the Texans drafted Kenyon Green, 15th overall. Kenyon Green, to me, didn't change from a personality standpoint, confidence, what was emitted from him. But just if we're talking just football, from an NFL body type, I never noticed the difference. I mean, the guy looked like he could have been a junior going into his senior season at Atascocita High School, year 2 in the NFL. Couldn't tell. He just didn't look like he had that dog, that physical, that NFL-ready body. This guy, Ariante Ursary, 6'6", 330, has a lot to do with it, but it looks like he's got a lot of meat on the bones. He sounds like he's just ready for this. He's hungry. He's built for this. They haven't even had a really good football practice yet. That's just what I see when I couple with what I've looked at him on film. I'm very excited about this guy. He could be a big piece to the puzzle for the Texans offensive line, going forward in years to come.
You said Ursary looks like a guy that's always hungry. It looks like the entire offensive line this year is always hungry. It's a big group of guys.
Yeah. They should be able to move some dudes around. That's for dang sure.
I want to talk a little Astros at the quarter pole of the season in just a second. So we'll move on from Texans. But before we roll on, a quick reminder that even though the Rockets offseason has started, the NBA playoffs are still rolling, and we've got your chance to score big. Every three-pointer and buzzer beater is an opportunity to win at MyBookie. Place your bets live as the action unfolds. Are you feeling confident? Lock in your winnings early with our quick cash out option. Never miss a chance to turn your basketball knowledge into real cash. And hey, are you new to MyBookie? Sign up today with the promo code MM50. That's MM50, and instantly boost your first deposit. That code's up on the screen as well as in the description. And if you deposit $50, MyBookie tosses in an extra $25. If you deposit $100, you get a $50 bonus. More action, more excitement, more chances to win during basketball's intense playoff season. Plus, when the games wrap up, keep the winning streak alive at MyBookie's casino with slots, blackjack, roulette, and more. The thrills never stop. Bet anything, anytime, anywhere, only with MyBookie. All right, Shaun, the Astros just one game behind the Mariners, 42 games in the season, but the fan base and even some Astros media make it sound like it's a dying dynasty, or at least that's what I'm hearing. Do you agree? Because I don't.
I don't know how you could really go one way or the other at this point. There's just a lot of unknown because it's new, it's different. You don't have a staple in Alex Bregman anymore. You don't have Kyle Tucker, Mr. Reliable. You grew to know what to expect from this guy in the last 3 years. He was going to be close to a 30-30 guy, drive in 90, 100 runs every season and give you some steady play in the outfield. You knew exactly what you were getting from Alex Bregman defensively. Gold glove caliber guy, somebody that was going to perform in the clutch, which is something that, the Astros have struggled with. Though this Kansas City Royals series notwithstanding, they've been pretty darn good in the clutch the last 2 games, and we're just one swing away in game 1 of the series. But I think it's TBD, man. I'm very intrigued. I think this team is becoming more fun to watch, more excitable, and I think it's for a few reasons. Jeremy Pena is incredible. The guy is taking the next step this season, and I'm not surprised. I expected this. Joe Espada this offseason, when he was asked on MLB Network, who is a guy that you envision taking on a more vocal leadership kind of role when Alex Bregman, or if Alex Bregman is gone? And he didn't mention anybody else. He didn't hem and haw about it. He said one name, and it was Jeremy Pena. And he'd said the reason being is that he's been a guy in waiting, that he's just kind of been stifled, and he stifled himself because of a guy like Bregman being that guy in the clubhouse, because of Jose Altuve, because of other leaders on the team that are there and that have been there. Well, they're not. And Altuve is not going to be the guy that stands on the table and pounds his fist and rallies troops. He's going to go out there and work. But Jeremy Pena is a very excitable player who's now been given the opportunity to be a more vocal guy. I think he's brought excitement and some energy to the club that's needed that because of those two voids in Tucker and Bregman now, and never mind Verlander, never mind Presley, never mind Neris, some very familiar faces. And you couple that with Christian Walker, who developed into a leader in Arizona, a clubhouse guy in Arizona because he needed to. Now, he's struggling. He's working through some areas of his game, but you got to believe he's bringing a mentality that people very much respect. And another guy who has settled into his position greatly is Isaac Paredes. Maybe not swinging a great bat all season, but the guy gets on base. That's his MO. That on-base percentage of 385, 390 now, that's impressive. Watching his at-bats on a nightly basis is very, very cool. I think they've got the pieces to where this team is yet to really play complementary baseball. When they can start swinging the bats competitively and more consistently, and they get Yordan back, it's going to be a dangerous team. I don't know how you can discount it. Somebody said it on MLB Network the other day, I think it was, probably Mark DeRosa, because he's a smart guy. Discount the Astros, you're probably going to lose every time. Every year, how many times do we have to say it? They start a little slow, but when they crank into midseason form, the Rangers, the Mariners, whoever's there in the mix, they're going to be looking over their shoulder. You got to prove it to me that you can beat the Houston Astros, and nobody's been able to do that consistently over the course of the last decade.
Yeah, back to the original question, and I just hold on. I'm just receiving a text here, and the text says the Astros championship window is over. They have no young talent. Signed Jeremy Pena, Hunter Brown, Zach DeCenzo, Spencer Arrighetti, Cam Smith. Thanks. Bye.
Yeah.
Okay. So that's my answer to that question.
Hey, how about Colton Gordon? How about Colton Gordon, man? It was not a disastrous start for him in that last game of the Royals series. Now it was a little bit further away from the 2.55 ERA that we saw him collect, in 8 starts for the Space Cowboys this year. But can I tell you something real quick? Please don't discount Colton Gordon. There's one thing that I really noticed about him in his major league debut, because I think you should add him to the list on a guy to look out for. His body language. To me, he and Joe Espada kind of co-signed it after the game. He didn't back down. He was playing the game. He was not a guy that was, wow, like here I am playing for a World Series contender, a Houston Astros team. This is my major league debut. Man, I'm in trouble in the second inning. I'm in trouble in the third inning. I'm in trouble in the fourth inning. That catch that Jake Myers made to get him out of the third inning, leaving 2 runners on base with his team in a hole. I think it was 2-0 at the time. You saw Colt Gordon turn around and give Jake Myers that fist bump. He was pumped up. He was playing the game. He was in the moment. He didn't hang his head, mattered in hell, headed back to the dugout. He didn't hang his head, like, man, these guys are hitting the ball off of me. Man, I'm in trouble every inning. No, he's very much playing the game. He was a ball player. That's the demeanor. That's the body language. That's the attitude that I like to see from young pitchers. And it very much reminded me of what we've seen over the years in a young Jose Urquidy when he first came up. Bulldog. He reminds me of a little bit of Ronel Blanco. Bulldog. They don't have blow you away stuff. They're not going to overpower you with a fastball. They're going to change speeds, change your eye level, play chess, not checkers. That's what I saw from Colton Gordon. So I think he's very much going to be a part of that young Astro contingent that's trying to make a name for themselves.
Yeah, not ready to put Gordon there, not ready to put Gusto there, but I'm a fan of Gusto's too. So that's another name. Since we're at the quarter pole, I figured I'd get your grades on the Astros. Let's start with the bullpen. Last I checked, they were the best in baseball and had 4 players with a whip less than 1. So are you giving them what, a D or an F? What are you giving them?
The bullpen?
Yeah.
Hell, I might give them an A+. To be quite honest with you, I'll give them an A. Okay, A+, maybe a little too strong. Okay, they just DFA'd Taylor Scott. Brian Abreu got off to a little bit of a rocky start. Look, you're not going to pitch a perfect game or a perfect inning, immaculate innings, every time out. But I've been saying this, and I'm sure you've noticed the same thing, like a Colton Gordon start or AJ Blueball start or Fromber getting rocked, for 10 hits, 7 runs a couple of weeks ago. You look up, and those guys give you some short outings. But then that bullpen comes in, and collectively they've given you 4, 5, heck, what was it the other night? 6 2/3 scoreless baseball after the fact. Like, they've been stretched out. How many years has it been now? I feel like we've been saying this every single year through the first 40 to 80 ball games. Boy, the Astros really have to rely upon their bullpen. This year, it looks as good as it ever has to me, between Ort and Okert and Sousa and King. No matter who they have thrown out there, and you kind of now can hang your hat on an Abreu, hang your hat on a Josh Hader. It's the first year where collectively, I feel like in the early start of the season, you've been able to do that with confidence. These guys have been phenomenal. They've kept this team, which is struggling to generate runs consistently in games, and given them opportunities. As Joe Espada said, you give us a chance in the ninth inning, you got to feel pretty good about it. When we're one swing away, we like our chances. And for the Astros to have had as many of those opportunities, that's kudos to some really good starting pitching, but very consistently, very high in the 90th percentile, the appearances by anybody in the Astros bullpen. It's been tremendous.
You almost want to be quiet about it. You're afraid to say anything because, like, God, I don't want to mess this up. It's like building the old card pyramid, the playing card pyramid, and it's like, yeah, it's going well, but shh, don't say anything about the bullpen.
I know, yeah, we're all superstitious in baseball. We don't want to jinx anything, right? But they've been awesome, Robert. They've been fun to watch.
Yeah, before I get your grade on the starting pitching, how much fun is it to watch Hunter Brown, man?
Well, are you surprised? If Kyle Tucker was going to be the kid, because he looked like Ted Williams, swung like Ted Williams, well, what's the comp that we've been talking about for years with Hunter Brown? Justin Verlander.
Baby Verlander.
From the mechanics and now to the results, it's awesome. I don't know that you could ever honestly say, yeah, I told you so, saw this coming, but you knew he had it in him. Was it going to be this early in his career as an Astro? Now the question is, okay, sustainability. Don't push the envelope. There are a lot of fans that, don't like the 6-man rotation and like to see Hunter Brown, go out there every 3 days, never mind every 5, pitch your best guys the most you possibly can. Hey, how about, you just understand what else you've got in your arsenal right now, because Fromber's still Fromber. Hunter's coming up, and you got to love what you're seeing from Ronell. And when Spencer Arrighetti comes back, that dude was rolling too. And Brian Gusto took one on the chin the other day, but he very much looks like a guy that has the right makeup to be successful and contribute on the staff this year. And maybe Lance, comes into form too. Like, there's a lot of really good that's going on with the rotation. Hunter Brown's phenomenal. He's definitely got ace stuff, and I wouldn't be surprised that we're talking about him in the same sense that we've talked about Fromber for the last 5 years. That's Mr. Reliable. That's your stopper. That's your ace.
Yeah, they've had some bad luck. It seems like early in the year with their starting pitching. I mean, just injuries or guys getting off to. I mean, last year, we had a couple guys get off to just terrible starts. But overall, just how would you grade their starters?
I would say a B- right now in terms of overall results. Even, again, on nights where your starter barely makes it into the 5th or gets you 4 1/3 or 5 and gets in a little trouble, the bullpen's been there. So maybe that's clouding my judgment a little bit, because I'm struggling not looking at this thing in the overall. You're asking me about the starting pitching. It's been good enough to keep the team in games. I think sometimes when at the end of a season we're asked about the starting pitching, it's a little bit easier of an answer, because the offense typically with the Astros has made it a lot easier to be more forgiving with what you've gotten out of the starting pitching, because you've not played in maybe so many close ball games and 3-2, 3-1, 2-1 type games. I think it's the case this year. Maybe that's why I'm a little high on the starting pitching. Maybe I'm about right. I don't know what you think, but I would give them a B-. That's the most important thing with the way that the games are played now. 6 innings, technically, it's a quality start, but we all know with pitch counts being what they are and managers, pitching coaches being so careful with these guys, if you can give your team 5 innings, allow 3 runs or less, to me, that's like the new quality start in Major League Baseball. And it's been the case for, a handful of years now with all of the specialists that are in a bullpen and what you expect out of a starting pitcher. So for that reason, I give them a B-. I like what I've seen from this group, and thank God they have not, knock on wood, been struck by, baseball Armageddon with the injuries that they did last year. Last year was just almost insurmountable, and they found a way to get over it too.
It helps with your starting pitching if you've got some defense. They lead the league, I should say, currently in fewest errors and in fielding percentage. Dana Brown made it a priority to fix the defense in the offseason. People chastise him for moving Altuve to left field. So I'm putting this on a T for you, Shaun. What grade do you give this defense?
An A. One guy for sure in particular right now that I'd give an A++ to is Jeremy Pena. I think he's got 2 errors on the season, tied a career high of 19 last year, which he made his rookie year. And not to take anything away from Isaac Paredes, who has been really good at third base, not to take anything away from Jeremy Pena. You've also got a Gold Glove caliber guys that you've played at second base, whether it be Brendan Rodgers or Mauricio Dubon, who's really good at second as well. There's one guy that you have to give a lot of credit to, and he hasn't performed at the plate the way that you want him to just yet. That's Christian Walker. How much better did Yuli Gurriel, a Gold Glove caliber first baseman, make Alex Bregman, Carlos Correa, Jose Altuve at second base those years that he was occupying first? How much better did we think Christian Walker was going to make Isaac Paredes, Jeremy Pena, and whoever was at second this season? I mean, it's a 3-time Gold Glove winning first baseman, and that's all you have to say. We watch the games. You can see it. The guy's tremendous over there. He's going to save a lot of hits, save a lot of outs, rather, and he could scoop them with the best of them. He's athletic. He can move, knows how to play the position. He doesn't overextend himself. I think he's as much of a part of what you've seen on the Astros defensive front from an infield standpoint as much as anybody else. And when you got guys like Framber Valdez and Hunter Brown, 2 really great ground ball pitchers, it doesn't hurt so much to put a rookie at a position that he's never played before in Cam Smith in right field. It doesn't hurt so much to put Altuve out in left many more times than not. And you know what you're going to get out of Jake. Great defensive play. Insert Jake, insert Chaz. Mauricio, when he's asked to do so, he can hold his own out there as well, too, in spots. So I'm not surprised. This is a very good defensive club again.
The metrics on Cam Smith in right field are shocking for a guy that's never played there. I don't even know if I don't think he played in high school, probably didn't play in middle school. I
think he played right field a little bit it was either the Cape Cod or the Stan Musial League, and that was it.
You know, I always say 2/3 of Houston covered by mosquitoes. The other third is covered by Jake Myers. So nice. he has been unbelievable. Before we talk Astros offense, let me remind our listeners that I want to hear your Texans and Astros takes. Drop them in the YouTube comments. And if you missed it, check out my last show for some Rockets draft content and a couple more potential offseason trades. You can also support us and get updates on every show that drops by subscribing on YouTube. Give us a thumbs up and listen while you're out and about with your favorite podcast app. All right, Shaun, no more procrastination. We got to talk about the 27 the 25 Astros offense. How do you grade this murderer's row-ish offense?
D+. Maybe that's a little too harsh, maybe C-, but I say D+ because Christian Walker hasn't been that guy. Jose Altuve's slumping a little bit. We know the guys that are struggling, okay? We know the guys that are struggling, and we know the guys that have been Mr. Consistent, Isaac Paredes and Jeremy Pena. Jake Myers, I think, is surprised a lot of people. For what reason, I don't really know. The question with Jake has always been sustainability. The guy can fill up a box score, for a week, a 2-week stretch. But when given the opportunity, you never know what that can do for a guy. And so many times in sport, you have to cap a guy and his opportunity at some point in time because you're trying to win baseball games and you're trying to find the best possible guy. Well, why have the Astros given Jake Myers so much opportunity in center field? Well, the glove, one. And you've been really good in other areas to where you can allow that to happen. It's very difficult to be elite at all 9 positions every single day. And the Astros have played the risk-reward game at times with the catching position. Martin Maldonado sacrificed offense there. They've sacrificed offense at first base for a lot of years. They sacrificed offense in center field and in various positions. I think until this ball club shows all of us that they can consistently execute the game plan that they said that they were going to change to this offseason, from the lips of Dana Brown to Joe Espada, they needed to change their approach at the plate and stop hunting so many fastballs early in counts, be more patient, work the count. Well, you got a guy in Isaac Paredes now that does that. Jeremy Pena's really changed his game. Jake Myers, just saw a stat last night, I think it was. His OPS is like top 5, top 6 in all of Major League Baseball against breaking balls. That shows a lot of patience, a lot of concerted effort to, find, those pitches to where they're in the zone and more hittable, and don't be so much like Yainer Diaz and swinging in the left-hand batter's box, for balls way out over the plate.
I will also point out, though, I like the fact that they wanted this new approach. And Christian Walker, they said he was 11th in most pitches seen. But just my message to Christian Walker, just because we want you to see more pitches doesn't mean you need to be looking at fastballs over the middle for strike 3 when guys are on base and in scoring position. Doesn't mean that we don't need you to put the ball in play when guys are in scoring position. I mean, his at-bats with guys in scoring position has been awful. And a guy that's been in the cleanup spot for a lot of the year or in the middle of the order, I mean, I'm at the point where move him out of there until he starts knocking runs in, until he starts having better at-bats with guys in scoring position.
Joe Espada said something the other night. I think he was talking about Jeremy Pena. He was asked about, hey, man, Pena's stats, in the leadoff spot, which are ridiculous now. I mean, he's batting, I think, over 400 in the leadoff spot for the last 16 games or whatever it is. But Espada said something like, he's aggressive when he needs to be aggressive, and he's patient when he needs to be patient. It's that trust that he has in his swing, in his approach. That's just something that Christian Walker is going to have to find again. Brian McTaggart, I blame him. He wrote that article about Christian Walker, tweaking, tinkering with his swing. And it's like, oh, God, here we go again. Like, how many articles have we read about Alex Bregman doing the same thing over the course of a year? And we have to be patient for that to kind of finally stick and something works. But McTaggart snapped a 7-game hit streak, from Christian Walker by writing this, silly article about this. Now Walker's 0 for 12 with 7 strikeouts, since that. So I demand Brian McTaggart delete that post off of Twitter, Instagram, wherever he has it, the Cron website. Get that out of here. Don't write about anybody else. Just keep on with your tidbits. So I'll just say that. But he can hit, like back of the baseball card guy. That's why you felt good about it. The age 34, that was it. There was really no sign of precipitous decline in his game, bat speed, all of the things that we could now retroactively go back and say we should have known about Jose Abreu. We should have seen that coming. We should have seen that coming with Yuli Gurriel. I mean, sometimes you just don't know.
Walker had his 3 best years the last 3 years, offensively, defensively, the whole package. And it's funny because Myers, Pena, and DeCenzo turned into really good hitters. Imagine if the Astros lineup had 2024 Jordan, Walker, and Altuve. That's 959 OPS, 803 OPS, 790 OPS. The season sort of reminds me of that Seinfeld episode, Shaun, when Costanza decides he's just going to do the opposite and see what happens. The Astros have gone full Costanza on offense.
Yeah, I made that actual reference earlier this year. I can't remember. They did something particular, and I was like, this is way too familiar. I've seen this episode too many times before. It's very George Costanza. That's a good point. Let me ask you this question. Look, Jordan could come back any day. Christian Walker's not producing in the cleanup spot. If you knew Jordan was going to be out for, let's say, God forbid, another week, and Christian's just scuffling, who would you bat cleanup right now?
Leave the order, the 1, 2, 3, the way they're doing, and then have Jordan bat cleanup. Hopefully he gets it rolling. Yainer in the 5th spot, and I'm starting to wonder if Altuve doesn't get it turned around. This might be blasphemy to some people, but Jake Myers might deserve batting in the tool hole with his speed. You have him and Jeremy Pena at the top of the lineup. I mean, you'd seriously have to think about that. Altuve's got to get it going. I mean, this is bad. And that contract at, 3 years, $30+ million over the next 3 would, it looks a little like Abreu. He's a bad defensive player wherever you put him. And offensively, he started to slip last year, and I'm scared. I mean, I love Altuve, but the bottom line is that money still counts towards your cap, and it's going to limit you at times in the next few years because you've got Altuve. It's like if you had that owner that just like, hey, I don't care, we'll spend whatever, like the Mets owner, Yankees, Dodgers, whatever, we'll just go, way over the top. But this Altuve stuff, it's going to be real sad, I think, and it's going to kind of limit them because it's very concerning with what Altuve, the decline we saw last year and the decline we're seeing again offensively this year.
There very much could be something to that, but if Patrick Creighton and I agreed with him. He said the other night, like, is there anybody in this lineup that deserves the benefit of the doubt more than Jose Altuve? And the obvious answer is no. How patient are you going to be, and how impatient, do we become with Jose Altuve when he is one of 7 guys not hitting consistently in this lineup, not named Jeremy Pena or Isaac Paredes? It's very easy to become impatient with him. It's not even just the batting average, it's the on-base percentage too. The on-base percentage, very accustomed to seeing Altuve, have something in the 340, 350 range, for much of the season. And he's not getting on bases. And when he is getting on base, because the at-bats are not quality like we'd seen over the years with him, we know base running hadn't been there, and that sticks out like a sore thumb more times than not now than ever before with Altuve. How many outs has he run into just in the last 2 weeks? It feels like it's every other night kind of occurrence, and that's frustrating. But
it's easy to ignore when you're getting on base all the time. It's hard to ignore when every time you get on base, you're getting thrown out.
Sure. I don't think it's a bad thought at all by you with the Jake Myers promotion to maybe a 2-hole behind Pena. Problem is, it's not a problem. It's just a decision that Joe Espada has to make. And I think it's a lot easier to make that on a guy like Jeremy Pena, who proved last year where this guy was batting 6th and he's demoted to 9. But he hits his way out of the 9, hits his way out of the 8, hits his way out of the 7, hits his way back. He bat cleanup at one point last year for a good little stretch, Jeremy Pena did, and was producing. And it was necessary for him to do that. But Espada has the confidence in guys that have that innate confidence in themselves. Does Jake Myers have that? Or has Jake Myers felt like the player that has always needed that little push and then time and then another push and then time? And then maybe it's not reciprocated all the time with Jake. I think that's a guy that, Joe finds it very difficult to put in some more pressurized situations. I might be totally wrong. That's just the feel that I have from having watched him in, the last 3 years or so, especially the last couple.
At least it's something to think about is what I'm saying.
Yeah. But what does Joe do? He plays the hot hand. There's a reason Jake is getting, starts every single night. Like now here's a guy who's finishing ball games where even when he started off well last year, early in the portion of the season, Robert, he wasn't given the opportunity to finish ball games. They'd make a replacement in the 7th inning for him. They'd take him out, pinch hit whoever for him because Joe didn't trust him in big spots in 7th inning or later at bats. And now when the guy's swinging a good bat, you have to play that hot hand, especially in a lineup now that's not hitting at all collectively. Look at the bottom of the order. Jake Myers has been that guy. That's another reason why I don't know if Joe would really consider this or not. But with nobody really hitting consistently, I feel like more times than not here in the last couple of weeks, Robert, you look at the 6, 7, 8, 9 guys, and I say 6 because Yiner's been a tweener. He's looked like he might put it together here and there, but he struggled a little bit. But I put him very much in that bottom of the order group with Myers and DeCenzo and Cam Smith. They've produced. Look at the opportunities they've given Jeremy Pena and Jose Altuve earlier in the season to be guys that are driving in these runs. You just wait now till Jordan comes back, and he's going to be very mad at baseballs when he does. If Christian can come back, then I think Joe can get a little bit more flexible with the lineup, and maybe Jake feels a little less pressure if he is promoted up the lineup to produce because you've got guys like Christian and Jordan behind you.
If they were both healthy, hitting and all that stuff, I wouldn't even discuss the Jake Myers thing. And I wouldn't be worried about Altuve, but yeah, it's because everything else is falling apart. The Altuve stuff is starting to scare me a little bit. And frankly, maybe something I would notice regardless. But yeah, it's I think that is a big deal. We mentioned Joe Espada. Are you seeing any egregious strategic errors? How do you grade him so far this year?
Who had this quote the other day? It was like Dave Roberts after Bud Black got fired by the Rockies. it was funny. I don't know how true it was, but there's a relationship there that exists between Dave Roberts and Bud Black. They've crossed paths a time or two over the years in baseball, but he'd said something like Casey Stengel couldn't have won with that ball club. It's not the manager's fault. Like insinuating that it's a poorly run organization and they don't have the talent. You can't blame everything on the manager. I feel like more pressure at this point in time should be on Alex Cintron and Troy Snitker, the Astros hitting coaches, than anything Joe Espada's done at this point. And I said the same thing last year. Look at the Astros hitting coaches. Let's question this philosophy.
It's hard to question though the hitting coaches when Jake Myers and Jeremy Pena and Zach DeCenzo are doing what they're doing. Like what can they or should they be telling Christian Walker or Yordan Alvarez?
It's less about Yordan, for me. And look, very valid points on Jake Myers and Jeremy Pena. But truth be told, Jeremy Pena's hit. This isn't the first year he's hit. It's just he hadn't hit to the clip that you'd like a shortstop to hit because comparison.
Nothing close. Close.
But and I'm not saying that you need to fire Alex Cintron and Troy Snitker, but I'm saying if you're going to question anybody, question those guys before Joe Espada. I don't think there's been anything really egregious that Espada's done or not done to this point. I mean, the most egregious thing was 2 weeks ago when he made a move out of the bullpen or something involving pitching a guy for third time in 4 days or whatever, and it's like, okay, why are we doing that? Why are we stretching this guy out when you have Bennett Sousa or whoever it was? I can't even remember what the situation was, but Espada's, I think he's been fine. And to me, it's more about listen to the words Joe Espada says. Like he's been a really, I think calming influence and provided the energy, and had the players' backs for guys like Jeremy Pena and Isaac Paredes and Christian Walker. I mean, you go down the list. I like the way that he handles the tough questions in the post game. Now, hey, you want something? I didn't like the fact that the other night he'd said, "Go ask him." When asked a specific question, about one of his starting pitchers, I can't remember who it was, or it might have been a reliever, and he said, "Well, go ask him." Man, handle that for the guy. Don't defer. Have your players' backs all the time. That's the only thing that I would say. But in terms of like strategical moves and stuff, I haven't seen anything that I would find damning.
He's at Shaun Bijani on X, the show Area 45 with Patrick Creighton. Turn down the Astros game, turn up them every single weeknight. And I have a trivia question for you. Since your show is Area 45, who is the only Astros player to ever wear number 45? And I'm going to give you a hint. His first year with the Astros, he was an all-star and he won the Silver Slugger, but he was never a fan favorite, to say the least.
Oh, my goodness. All right. His first year with the Astros, he was an all-star and the Silver Slugger.
Yeah, and he wasn't bad, but they signed him to a pretty big contract.
Carlos Lee.
There you go.
Yeah.
El Caballo.
Yeah. That's not bad. I don't know that I even needed the hint because 45, he was a big fella. Like the number, like see him in left field. It's just like, it's there. I can't miss it.
Yeah, and by the way, nobody on the Texans is wearing 45. British Brooks is 44. Recently signed free agent linebacker Jackson Woodard, who I'm sure everybody is all familiar with and has read everything about Jackson Woodard, is 46. But there is no 45 right now, despite the billion numbers in the Texans locker room.
That's all right. We couldn't have been 6'10", can't wear jersey 6'10", and 69. Nobody calls it 69. It's Highway 59. So we chose 45 because it splits the city right up the guts, the heart of the city. It's the first major freeway in the city's history. And so Area 45, like we cover everything in the area. The truth is in Area 45.
Carlos Lee, El Caballo. Hey, thanks for doing this, man. I appreciate the time.
Good catching up, man. Thank you for having me.
You're listening to Houston Sports Talk.
Hey, don't forget to support us by subscribing and commenting on YouTube. You can always listen to us on Spotify, Apple, or your favorite podcast app. Tell your friends about us and share our show links on social media. Spread the word, everybody. Thanks for listening.